On our newscast tonight, although the number of MERS cases has risen again, there are some positive developments in the battle against the virus here in Korea. The number of people in quarantine is dropping, and 7 people have completely recovered from the disease. And as President Park Geun-hye monitors Korea's efforts to contain the MERS virus, she receives a call from her U.S. counterpart who says he fully understands her decision to postpone her visit to the U.S. and offers to provide the necessary assistance in the battle against MERS. 2 Korean survivors of Japan's wartime sexual slavery passed away yesterday, a clear sign that time is running out for the remaining survivors as they wait for a formal apology from Japan. Stay with us for these stories and more.
Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Friday, June 12th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. We begin with the latest on the MERS outbreak here in Korea. There is another patient with conflicting test results, and this time it's a young person under the age of 10.
And earlier, an additional death was reported, putting the total at 11. For more, we now connect to our Shin Se-min standing by at the news center. Se-min, fill us in on the latest.
Yes, Ji-hye and Daniel, it is unsettling news. For the first time, a child under the age of 10 tested positive for the MERS virus in a second round of testing. Now, the outcome is in conflict with the first test, which was negative, but if confirmed, the child will become the youngest MERS patient in Korea. It is believed the child picked up the virus from their dad, who is quarantined at home, as the child has never been to any of the hospitals where MERS patients are being treated. So authorities are questioning whether the child is the first case of the infection 4 times removed from the index case or patient 0. And earlier today, an 11th death was reported, a 72-year-old female patient from Jeollabuk-do province. Now, health ministry officials say she had been in a coma for the past 5 days after being confirmed for the disease last Saturday, June 6th. It's believed she picked up the virus from the hospital in Pyeongtaek, where the country's first MERS patient was being treated back in mid-May.
Well, Semin, the light at the end of this MERS tunnel seems to be that the pace of new cases seems to be dwindling a little bit. Lay it out for us.
Yes, Daniel. As of now, there are some 3,680 in quarantine. And since yesterday, 4 people have tested positive for the MERS virus, and 125 were released from the quarantine overnight. Now, looking at the numbers here, confirmed and quarantined patients seem to be on a downward trend, suggesting the spread of the disease may be slowing down. But with this new case of the child who may have contracted the virus from their father, it may be a little too early to tell whether the outbreak is on the wane.
So we will have to keep an eye on that case. But what about the hospitals? Has the government released that list of safe hospitals?
Yes, Ji-hye, the list came out this afternoon, and the health ministry designated some 87 MERS-free hospitals that can treat patients with various respiratory diseases, even patients with symptoms similar to MERS. Now, the hospitals will also prevent visitors from seeing the patients, as their main purpose is to help contain the spread. Now, those facilities will be up and running starting on Monday. The government also launched a MERS hotline for foreigners, so English speakers can access reliable information there.
What about the schools, Semin? Are we still seeing closures?
Well, today, Education Minister Hwang Oh-ye said schools in Seoul can reopen on Monday, as he believed the danger of the virus has subsided. His recommendation comes on the heels of the World Health Organization urging schools to, quote, strongly consider resuming classes, as all known transmissions have occurred in hospital settings. But school principals have the final say on whether to reopen or not. And the minister's comment also follows yesterday's comments by the education officials in Gyeonggi-do province that said schools can reopen on Monday. But with the child testing positive for the virus today, we'll have to see what the impact on schools and the nation will be on Monday. And that's all for now. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks for that report, Semin. And moving on, 2 days after postponing her trip to the United States, President Park Geun-hye explained the situation to President Barack Obama over the phone earlier today.
She also checked in on the country's efforts to contain the MERS virus. Our Chae Yu-sun has more.
U.S. President Barack Obama made the call to President Park Geun-hye, saying he fully understands President Park's decision to postpone her trip to focus on the MERS response. The American president added he has told his aides to discuss rescheduling her visit at the earliest convenient time. Thanking the U.S. leader, President Park explained although she had looked forward to discussing a range of bilateral and global issues with him, she couldn't be absent at a critical point in time in the MERS outbreak. In response, President Obama said their bilateral relations are Washington's top priority and that strengthening their partnership to deal with issues like North Korea, climate change, and cybersecurity will not only help the two countries, but the entire world. President Park continued checking in on Korea's efforts to contain the MERS virus on Friday, this time at the Gyeonggi-do Province Response Headquarters, which is one of the most affected regions in the country.
내놓고 한다 하더라도 역시 방역의 핵심은 여러분이 계신 현장에 있다고 생각합니다.
The president also called and comforted a homemaker who is currently in voluntary home quarantine.
여보세요? 아유, 예. 얼마나 좀 걱정이 많이 되시고 또 불편하게 지내십니까?
WHO Assistant Director General Keiji Fukuda, who attended a meeting led by President Park on Friday, said Korea is taking the right steps to eradicate the virus, but that he expects it will take a couple more weeks for the measures to take effect. Chae Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Well, much of the MERS focus is on the patients, but being on the front lines of the battle to contain the virus is a daunting task.
And while many are staying away from hospitals altogether, according to our Kim Ji-yeon, some citizens in Daejeon came together to show their appreciation to these brave and dedicated professionals.
Goggles, a mask, and a respiratory device. Medical personnel have to wear heavy protective clothing just to interact with the patient. Simply standing straight in all this gear is exhausting. Try wearing it and treating sick patients all day. Plus, you're putting your own health on the line. Some even had their privacy compromised when the Seongnam City mayor released information on the names of hospitals and suspected patients online last week.
Some of us complained after the identities of medical staff and their families were leaked to the public.
To show their gratitude to these tireless health workers, a group of people in Daejeon City gathered to cheer them on.
I hope they will gain strength and know that we thank them for their efforts.
I feel appreciated, and I know it's going to really help the people still working hard inside.
All 8 medical personnel from the Asan Chungmu Hospital in Chungcheongnam-do Province were cleared of the MERS virus on Friday. They have been placed in quarantine after discovering that a patient they were treating for other issues was confirmed to be carrying the virus. The hospital says it will reopen its emergency room to treat patients starting Saturday. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
After a tug-of-war that continued throughout the week, a parliamentary committee has endorsed nominee Hwang Kyo-won as prime minister. But the action was pushed through by the ruling party as the opposition resisted, claiming he's unfit for the job. Our Park Ji-won has the details.
Lawmakers from the ruling Saenuri Party, which has a one-vote majority on the committee, unilaterally adopted the confirmation hearing report after lawmakers from the opposition parties walked out in protest. The action clears the way for a vote by the full assembly.
I declare the confirmation hearing report on Prime Minister nominee Hwang Kyo-won adopted.
Lawmakers from the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party say the prosecutor-turned-justice minister is unfit for the post due to a string of allegations against him. These include a charge of influence peddling while he was working at a major law firm and questions about his military exemption.
The lawmakers also cite Hwang's failure to submit all the documents requested for the confirmation hearing, saying that is reason enough to disqualify him because it means the nominee is resisting a thorough examination of his credentials.
With the adoption of this confirmation report, anyone who aims to become a minister or prime minister may choose not to submit the requested documents.
Lawmakers from the ruling Saenuri party say, however, there are no major grounds for disqualifying him, and his appointment is needed to fill the void in state affairs. They also emphasize that Friday is the deadline for confirming the report according to National Assembly law.
The two parties originally agreed to adopt the report by Friday, but the opposition unilaterally refused to vote in the committee. I am very disappointed that they ignored the agreement between the parties.
The prime minister post has been empty for about a month and a half, following the resignation of the previous prime minister Lee Wan-gu over a high-profile bribery scandal. The National Assembly vote on Hwang's confirmation is slated for sometime next week. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And over to the mediated settlement of the revised parliamentary law laid out by the National Assembly Speaker. The main opposition party said today that it will discuss whether to accept the settlement at a general meeting on Monday. Assembly Speaker Chung Hee-hwa also said he will put off sending the revised law to the cabinet until after the opposition party wraps up its talks on his proposed changes. Chung was going to send the original version of the revised law today if the opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy did not accept the mediated version. The presidential office strongly opposes the revised law, even with the changes by the National Assembly Speaker, saying it could encroach upon the government's executive rights. Pundits say the president will likely veto the law. Now, Korea's oldest nuclear reactor is expected to close down in the face of safety concerns. This marks the first closure in 37 years since the country started generating nuclear power. Kwon So-ah tells us more.
The Kori-1 has served the country for long enough. That's what a panel from Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy concluded on Friday. The 580-megawatt light water reactor, the country's first, was built in the southern city of Busan 38 years ago. It's already been operating much longer than its designed lifespan. In 2007, the reactor received a 10-year extension that would keep it running until 2017. The state-run Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company, the operator of the plant, wanted a second extension, but residents, experts, and politicians have opposed a longer run, citing safety issues. The Kori-1 has racked up a total of 130 accidents and failures, more than any other domestic plant. It's also been closed frequently and has been losing efficiency. Concerns increased after Japan's 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster. Korea's Energy Minister Yoon Sang-jik said after an Energy Commission meeting Friday that, quote, the permanent shutdown is appropriate for the mid- and long-term development of the nuclear industry. The government will now deliver the recommendation to the nuclear reactor's operator, as the company needs to make its final decision before the set deadline next Thursday. Experts say the decommissioning process could take anywhere between 12 and 60 years, as there are several ways to do it. Minimum estimates put the cost around $537 million. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
On a more somber note, 2 more Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery passed away on Thursday night. They died without an apology from the Japanese government for Tokyo's wartime atrocities. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports on how the dwindling number of surviving victims has again highlighted the urgency of resolving the issue once and for all.
The deaths of 91-year-old Kim Dae-sun and 81-year-old Kim Wei-hwan leave only 50 surviving comfort women registered with the South Korean government. More than 200,000 women, mostly Koreans, were forced to serve the Japanese military during Japan's colonial rule of Korea in the early 1900s. All their life, the women have waited for a sincere apology and compensation from the Japanese government, but time is running out. The highly emotive issue of the so-called comfort women is the biggest thorn between Korea and Japan. President Park Geun-hye has refused to hold a summit with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe until he apologizes for Tokyo's wartime atrocities.
We maintain the position that the two countries must hold talks for establishing sustainable trust, not talks for the sake of holding talks.
But the two sides are trying to thaw their frosty relations ahead of the 50th anniversary of the normalization of their diplomatic ties. Seoul's foreign ministry said Thursday that Korea and Japan are reviewing the possibility of a high-level attendance at events to mark the anniversary. For that, Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se is widely expected to visit Tokyo on June 22nd to attend the celebrations there and hold talks with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to Pyongyang, North Korean leader Kim Jongun sent a congratulatory message to Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier this day, marking the celebration of Russia's National Day. According to the regime state media Nodong Shinmun, Kim's message included warm greetings and wishes for Russia's future success. Kim went on to say he believes bilateral ties between North Korea and Russia will grow even stronger this year to reach a new level. The two allies declared the 2015 year to be the year of friendship back in March as they vowed to expand cooperation in political, economic, and cultural sectors. An expert on North Korea says the South Korean government's envisioned reunification plan is nothing more than a pipe dream. He's urging Seoul to consider scaling down its grand plans for a unified Korea. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports on Gregory Toloraya's views.
A Russian expert on North Korean affairs has labeled South Korea's reunification plans unrealistic. Gregory Toloraya, a senior researcher at Russia's Academy of Sciences, says there's hardly any chance of Seoul's three-step unification plan being realized. South Korea's plan is based on North Korea's denuclearization, inter-Korean reconciliation, and fostering international support. Toloraya says the North Korean regime is less likely to collapse now than it was in the 1990s. And even if it did, the chance of it peacefully disbanding and coming under the wing of South Korea are slim to none. The expert says the current political structure in North Korea shouldn't be seen as a dictatorship, but rather as a monarchy, under which another figurehead will take the reins if the Kim family line falls. Toloraya says Seoul needs to consider geopolitical factors and change its all-around approach to the North, while convincing Washington to do the same. Meanwhile, Russia's ambassador to South Korea, Alexander Timonin, said on Thursday that international pressure would not make the regime abandon its nuclear program. He emphasized the issue should be settled through the swift resumption of the six-party talks that aim to denuclearize North Korea in exchange for economic and political aid. The six-party talks, made up of two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, have been stalled since late 2008. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Time now for the top international headlines. We now connect to our Paul Yi at the News Center.
Our focus today, French investigators dive deeper into the tragic Germanwings air disaster. The chief executive of Twitter steps down, and Facebook's $2 billion investment shows off the future of virtual reality.
Paul, let's start off in Paris. Prosecutors there have announced a fresh inquiry into the deadly crash of a Germanwings plane last year. What's prompted the reopening of this case?
Well, the decision to move forward with a new criminal investigation comes after it was confirmed that doctors who had treated the co-pilot Andreas Lupitz deemed him unfit to fly. However, they chose not to inform the airline due to patient confidentiality laws. According to German authorities, Lupitz had seen over 40 doctors in the span of 5 years and had sought treatment 7 times in the month before the crash for depression and insomnia. French prosecutor Bryce Robin said the critical issue now is to establish whether to file manslaughter charges.
This investigation has to better clarify the balance between patient confidentiality and the flight security. It'll have to explain how and why a pilot can be in a cockpit with the intention to lead to the loss of the aircraft and its passengers, despite the existence of rules which impose medical standards for flying technical staff.
A preliminary report says Lupitz had deliberately crashed a Germanwings Flight 9525 into the French Alps, killing all 150 people on board. According to leaked audio recordings from one of the black boxes, Lubitz had also locked the captain out of the cockpit during the plane's final moments in the air. The incident has since prompted international airline firms to adopt stricter safety policies. And two of the most influential leaders in the media industry are set to step down from their posts, paving the way for a new generation of corporate moguls. On Thursday, the chief executive of Twitter, Dick Costolo, announced he would be quitting at the end of this month. He'll be replaced by co-founder Jack Dorsey on an interim basis, while the microblogging service looks for a new CEO. The company did not give a reason for the shakeup, but it does come as investors have been critical of Twitter's slowing growth in both profits and users. Meanwhile, Rupert Murdoch is also reportedly prepared to hand over control at 21st Century Fox to his son James Murdoch. The 42-year-old is a Harvard dropout who co-founded the hip-hop label Rawkus Records and later took over his father's media assets in Asia. Investors are still on the fence about the family succession. Shares of Fox and News Corp were both down as much as 0.5% in Thursday's trading. And finally, Facebook's $2 billion takeover of a virtual reality technology company has finally reached a crucial milestone as it races against other rival tech giants. On Thursday, Oculus unveiled the first consumer version of its VR headset, which has been described as placing users in the most immersive 3D environments to date. The company also announced it would work with Microsoft to bring games and hardware controllers directly to the Oculus Rift.
Come on, let's clap. The partnership here is a great opportunity for us to foster all of the innovation that we've seen over the years in virtual reality with a company with years of history in a leadership position in helping the industry embrace this new technology, what it means for gamers today, and its uses in many different areas in the future.
Oculus executives say the VR headset will start shipping early next year, but stop short of giving an exact price tag. More details are expected to be announced at the major E3 Video Game Expo in Los Angeles next week. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here on Monday.
It was hot and sunny Friday, but the air quality was good in most parts of the country, while some of the southern regions and Jeju have seen moderately high levels of fine dust since the late afternoon. But it's forecast to be all cleared out by tomorrow morning. And people in the upper inland regions, including capital, beware of another round of rain showers starting in the evening hours tomorrow night. So for those of you planning to head out to a baseball game at Samsir Stadium, might want to bring along a raincoat with you. Also bear in mind that the rain could come along with thunder, lightning, and even hail. And there's another chance of sudden showers on Sunday with slightly cooler temperatures. But the southern provinces will continue to have highs in the 30s throughout the weekend with no rain in the forecast. And as for tomorrow's temperature, Seoul and Gwangju will peak at 30, while Daegu and Busan rise to 31 and 25 respectively. And as for the other parts, it seems like Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 31 and 27, while Dokdo rises to 26. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, they say when it rains, you either just get wet or feel the rain, just like the paddy field and you when you're jogging sometimes under the rain. Well, that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for staying with us. This has been Daniel Choi.
And I'm Hwang Jie. Have a great weekend, and please join us at the same time next week. Goodbye for now.